Hi, everyone. It's Tanya Hertz here, and we are going to be talking tonight about cultural values, as well as some of the other tests that you can give and get in organizations to look at potential employees, at their behavior, and at their integrity. Right. So, integrity tests. Let's start by looking at integrity tests. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and I'm sure that you've seen integrity tests before in your life. These are often called paper and pencil honesty tests. They've taken the place of, you know, back in the olden days, they used to be able to actually hook someone up to a lie detector test and determine whether or not someone was telling the truth. And luckily, I think for me, I think very luckily, I can't imagine being hooked up to a lie detector, polygraph test, polygraph machine, and have your company asking you questions about, oh gosh, who even knows? Luckily, it's illegal. They have to administer paper and pencil honesty tests rather than polygraph. And these tests show whether or not you have a predisposition to engage in negative behaviors such as theft, other counterproductive behaviors, dishonesty, incivility, and like I said, stealing, all of these things. We can tell whether or not somebody has a predisposition to them, and we can administer these tests in a couple different ways, and they're actually effective, and which is surprising to me because you're asking people in a clear purpose test, you're asking people straightforward questions about what they think about dishonesty, about stealing, about lying, cheating, and they will answer the test in such a way that you can tell whether or not they're more likely to steal, and the research does support this. Now, a veiled purpose test, it's better at getting to to those personality characteristics that often are associated with dishonesty, and but it's just as effective. So it doesn't come right out and ask you questions about stealing, but it asks you about personality traits that are associated with stealing. All this is based on research, and surprisingly, they work. I honestly, I've had companies for many companies. I've been in business for many years, and I honestly had never given an integrity test, thinking that they were a waste of money, or the only thing that they were really testing was intelligence. Because in an integrity clear purpose test, you would ask a question like this. Did you ever think about taking money from where you worked, but then you didn't go through with it? Or questions like, it's okay to get around the law if you don't break it, or it's okay to steal from your employer if they don't treat you fairly, or whatever question like that. And I thought, honestly, what employee on the planet would answer, yeah, that's true, I agree with you, right? You'd think like, hello, what a moron. But honestly, the reason that these work, these tests work, is because of, remember when we were talking before about some of the biased or tilted thinkings, and remember the projection bias? Anybody remember what the projection bias does or states? It's that most people believe that other people think and act the way that they act, right? The way that they think and act. And so they know that you should never say to your employer, it's okay to steal, but they think that most people feel that way just like they feel that way. And so they will give, most of these are on a Likert scale. So they'll give an answer such as somewhat agree, right? Then they feel like, oh, I got away with that one, right? I got away with that. If I somewhat agree with it, they won't know that I believe that, stealing or lying is okay. But really, in these tests, we look for tiny changes. And because it's a Likert scale and we can see those small agreements, then that tells us a lot about whether or not the employee would steal. And like I said, these veiled purpose tests are a little bit trickier, and but again, they're asking for personality traits that are associated with the predisposition to lie, cheat, and steal, right? So people who, and a lot of it has to do with neuroticism, right? I have a feeling someone is out to get me. Yeah, this is these kind of neurotic beliefs are associated with doing things that are dishonest. So now let's talk quickly about culture. When we're talking about culture, we're talking about the beliefs, the values, the norms, the common sort of uh, enduring way that a society is, and the way that it is because of the shared common cultural experiences that that are passed on from generation to generation to generation. And when we are looking at cultures in terms of organizational um, relations, we look often at the way that the majority of people would behave in a given society. And culture can be, each of us have culture in our families, in our places of work, but when we're talking culture, we're talking about our kind of global culture. And most of the global culture research around work was done based on Hofstede's study of cultural dimensions. And this is a good overview of the difference between the different types of cultural values in an organization. I'm sorry, in an organization, in a country, in a part of the world. So each of the countries will score on one side of the spectrum or the other. Individualistic societies tend to take care of themselves and their immediate family, where collectivistic societies tend to look out for the group and take care of many members of society rather than just themselves. Now, and you can think of the United States, we tend to score very high in individualism, and more high now than at other times in history. But power distance, low power distance prefer more egalitarian, more evenly distributed power structures, where hierarchical power structures are preferred in high power distance cultures like China or Indonesia. Uncertainty avoidance, excuse me, is a culture's tolerance for ambiguity or the unknown, and how much they value ideas versus rules and systems and procedures. In the United States, we tend not to avoid uncertainty. We embrace uncertainty, so we score low on this metric. Masculine versus feminine has nothing to do with whether or not we treat men or women differently in society, although eventually I'm sure it does play a role on that. But what we're talking about here is how much a culture tends to embrace stereotypically male or female ideals in their culture. So stereotypically feminine ideals include things like caring, right? Being supportive, valuing quality of life over material possessions. Now, stereotypically masculine traits, assertiveness, money, acquisition of things, power. And that's not to say that that's true of all men or women, but again, in the aggregate, and these are just the kind of stereotypical. In the US, we tend to be much more masculine. Short term versus long term is the orientation that we have. Do we look to the future, or do we care more about the here and now? And I think it's easy to see that the United States is much more short term oriented. And why does this matter? Well, think about it. You're working in a global economy. And if you don't realize that yet, um, I mean, I can't imagine anybody not understanding that we are in a global economy and that we're very interconnected in the world, and you can't get away from it. And chances are you will be working with people from different parts of the world, and you may yourself be working in different parts of the world. And so it's so important that you understand where different cultures lie on Hofstede's taxonomy. There's also a project called Project Globe that is an excellent, excellent taxonomy of cultural values. Excuse me. It's been studied since 1991. They've studied over 1,000 companies in I don't know how many countries. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's hundreds of countries. And the dimensions are similar to Hofstede's, but they have different dimensions, and they went away from that old stereotypical masculine feminine, and they replaced it with gender egalitarianism. And this in Project Globe, they do look at how the culture treats women and men. And yeah, it's a really interesting study. It's evolving, it's not done. And just like Big Five is not done, we're still doing research on it. And that's why when you take your homework assignment, you're helping with research. But yeah, this is another excellent taxonomy. And all of this, what is it? Why do we talk about this so much? Well, we talked about it to see what employees are like, right? And so all of the things that we discussed will describe that. All right, have a great night and or day if it's day for you, and I'll see you at the next class.